Let's try and be objective. Easier said than done. Moskowitz and Garcia are taking part in Comer and Jim Jordan's hearing on the border. You would think the border is a subject that somebody like Nancy Mace, who, well, I think she's gone full MAGA, will be able to get a grasp of, would have a sense of having some idea on what they're talking about. No. Moskowitz and Garcia, this is what you call a premier example of how to be a representative and how to take part in a hearing which is just going down the nonsense trail. Whereas Nancy Mace, and this is somebody who thinks she's going to be a future VP. Okay.
If you listen to my colleagues, you would think the world didn't begin until President Biden was elected. You would think it was dinosaurs, the wheel, Jesus, the world was flat, the world was round, Biden was elected, every problem. Like nothing happened before. You know, people pretend like everything was just perfect. But you know what? One of my colleagues, when bringing up statistics, showed why this is a farce. She brought up that President Obama deported more people than President Trump. In fact, President Obama deported more people in each term than President Trump. Well, hold on a second. If the border wasn't a problem until President Biden was elected, then how were we deporting all of these people in administrations before Trump was elected? It's because this situation has been going on for decades. So stop lying to the American people that none of this happened until President Biden was elected. Yes, my colleagues passed H.R. 2. They did. It was a wonderful messaging bill. They knew when they passed it, it was dead on arrival in the Senate. And see, that's what this place does. The Senate passes bills that are dead in the House. The House passes bills that are dead in the Senate. They wash their hands with it, declare victory, and say, we did something. Okay? It's fake. You don't pass a bill that you know the other chamber isn't going to take and say, solve the problem. And it goes for the Senate, too. It's just not on the House. And by the way, there were some good policies in H.R. 2. There are things in H.R. 2 that I would vote for. There are things in H.R. 2 that are bipartisan to help secure the border. But there were things in H.R. 2 that were outrageous because it was never meant to become law. There are things in H.R. 2 that would potentially prevent Jews escaping the Holocaust from coming into the country. Because there's all sorts of changes to asylum. There's all sorts of, if you travel through a third country, you can't come in. There's all sorts of language in there that, again, was never meant to become law. And I don't think my colleagues, by the way, put that in there because they would want to prevent Jews from coming into this country. But we've seen what happens when there is language in laws that isn't intended, like what happened in the St. Louis in 1939, where there were laws that prevented Jews on a ship escaping Germany. We denied them because we applied things that weren't meant for that situation. And so, look, you don't have to listen to me, right? My colleagues don't have to listen to me. I want them to listen to their own colleagues. Their own colleagues. Chip Roy, who is a conservative Freedom Caucus member, has said President Trump has failed to secure the border. Ron DeSantis, who ran wall commercials in order to become governor, said Trump didn't bid the wall and Mexico didn't pay for it. Okay, and Mr. Holman, I appreciate your energy and passion for children. And I appreciate that you have said that, have you seen terrible things that keep you up at night? I have. I've seen parents in my neighborhood bury dozens of kids because they died at school. Because mentally ill people have access to weapons in this country and body armor and go into movie theaters and churches and schools and shopping malls and gun down children. You want to talk about a wall? You're talking to a wall. They're a wall. They don't want to help kids. By the way, they don't want to solve this issue either. Again, don't listen to me. Just listen to the speaker, who was caught on a call the other day saying that we can't solve the border crisis until after the election. By the way, here's Congressman Troy Niels giving it all away. Giving it all away. Let's read this. Let me tell you, he's talking about immigration. Let me tell you, I'm not willing to do a darn thing right now to help a Democrat, to help Joe Biden's approval rating. I will not help the Democrats try to improve this man's dismal approval ratings. I'm not going to do it. He's saying he's not going to do anything on the border. And he's from Texas, which needs help. He's not going to do anything because he doesn't want to give Joe Biden a win. You have members of this committee that have threatened to vacate the speaker again if they do anything on the border. Senator John Thune has said this is a unique opportunity. He said when Trump was president and Republicans controlled both chambers, they couldn't get done the policies that are being discussed now. So look, I'm willing to do stuff on the border. I'm willing to do it. But they're not willing to do it because they're doing what people hate about this place. They want to use it to raise money. They want to use it to politicize it. But they don't want to solve the issue. There's a deal on the table. They can solve the issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you kindly. This is just for a unanimous consent request for CBP enforcement statistics. I'd like to submit for the record showing that encounters with individuals on the terrorist screening data set at the southwest border were actually higher during the Trump administration.
So ordered without objection. The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from South Carolina, Ms. Mace, for 5 minutes for her request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an interesting hearing today. I think the left has lost its proverbial mind. I've heard a lot from the left today about how we are, quote, a nation of laws and need to follow our laws. It's the same group of people that won't condemn violence by Antifa. It's the same group of people that won't condemn violence by Black Lives Matter. It's the same group of people that won't condemn violence, anti-Semitic violent protests against Jews in this country right now. And they want to lecture us about following our laws, which is complete and total BS. Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas have willfully and intentionally unleashed an invasion of this country by illegal aliens from around the world, including known terrorists, sex offenders, and drug traffickers. By systematically dismantling the successful border security policies of the Trump administration, they flung the border wide open for any and all who wish to enter here illegally. That is on their backs. They claim their open border policies are compassionate, but the unprecedented humanitarian, national security, and economic crisis they have created is anything but. From a humanitarian standpoint, the horrors caused by the Biden administration's open borders are beyond words. Criminal cartels who control the border force illegal aliens, including women and children, into indentured servitude, sex slavery, drug trafficking, and worse, to pay their way into the United States. In fact, studies estimate 60% of unaccompanied alien children are exploited through child pornography and drug trafficking. If you speak to law enforcement at the border, you will hear of the rape trees, where they hang the underwear of women and girls they brutally raped on their journey to America like a trophy. There have been record deaths of illegal aliens, record deaths of American citizens due to fentanyl, and record profits for drug cartels at the hands of this administration. 10 years ago, I didn't even know what fentanyl was, and just in 2023 alone, I knew 2 people that died of a fentanyl overdose. Open borders aren't compassionate. They are evil. And I hope like hell Governor Abbott and other governors at the southern border let these sanctuary cities know what's going on at our southern border and share that evil with them, because this is at their hands too. And all of a sudden they have illegal immigrants in their cities and they don't want anything to do with them anymore. Alejandro Mayorkas has blood on his hands. My first question today, I've heard a lot this morning, Mr. Edlow, about the left saying that legal immigration is just so darn difficult. We're a nation of laws, but yet we can't follow our laws. The hypocrisy is real. Just a cursory question. How many come into our country legally every year?
The number, I couldn't give you an exact number, but it's close to 1 million, if not over.
Yeah, around 1 million
Right.
year after year, right? Can you explain how directives issued by Secretary Mayorkas have empowered drug cartels?
Certainly. The directives, starting with the halting deportation the first day of the Biden administration, then moving on to the enforcement priorities under Secretary Mayorkas, have made it so that drug cartels know that the majority of people that they help to come across for one reason or another, or that they exploit to help them get across, are going to are going to be not the subject of deportation, of enforcement actions, and ultimately it's going to help the cartels gain a greater foothold in the country.
I have one more question. Do you believe Secretary Mayorkas' actions and directives violate federal law and his oath of office?
Well, I believe that the actions, especially in terms of the regulations, have made the border significantly less secure. They are in violation of the law, and I do believe it's dereliction of duty for him to have signed off regulations that have done that.
Thank you. I have one last question for Mr. Homan. In the infinite wisdom of state and local officials in South Carolina, there are actually 0 sanctuary cities in our great state. However, on October 7th of 2021, Secretary Mayorkas issued a memo directing ICE to halt immigration enforcement in so-called protected areas throughout the country. As former acting director of ICE, can you explain how this undermines the ability of ICE to effectively enforce the law? Is it even possible for ICE to do their job under current DHS directives?
Because there's locations where they could be an aggravated felon, a public safety threat, we're not allowed to go there. If they're within a close vicinity of school, if they're in a close vicinity of a doctor's office. And I understand humanitarian concerns, but where's the public safety concern on that? And if I can add one more thing, ma'am, earlier I was questioned about the terrorist apprehended on the southwest border, and I was just heard that Trump administration had more. I have the CBP webpage here I took off this morning. In FY17, 2 on the southern border, FY18, 6, and FY23, FY19, 0 for a total of 11. If you count the northern border, total of 14, southwest border 11. Under the Biden administration, FY21, 15, FY22, 98, FY23, 169. So far this year, 30. So we got a grand total over 282 compared to 11 or 14, depending on what border.
That's DC math for you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Ms. Tlaib from Michigan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent motion. I'd like to enter an article into the record.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The article reads, Marjorie Taylor Greene threatens to oust Speaker Johnson over border deal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, so ordered. Ms. Tlaib.
Thank you. I want to remind everyone that just this week we saw the Republican Party nominate an insurrectionist, an indicted criminal, and a grifter who has accepted millions of dollars from foreign governments as their nominee for president, and that nomination rolls on. Now, as an immigrant myself, what's been the most offensive to me about Donald Trump is his disgusting rhetoric about immigrants. The man who entered politics by calling Mexicans rapists and trying to ban Muslims from entering this country is still spreading hatred today. Donald Trump has said that immigrants, and I quote, are poisoning the blood of our country, end quote. And I think it's important to remind ourselves of how horrific those words are. Now, this kind of rhetoric we hear all the time from Donald Trump, which we know also relates to something that Hitler once said. And our extremists here in Congress continue to parrot Donald Trump and his attacks on migrants and immigrants. We all want an orderly and safe border, but the idea here that we can have a serious conversation about the border is insane. Now, Mr. Beer, it's good to see you again, and I want to thank you for your testimony. And if you don't mind, I'd like to get your thoughts on some potential border solutions that we've actually heard a few times. Here I have a poster, and if you see it, it's got these alligators on a moat, and they're at the border, and this one's got a little hat. Do you think it'd be a good idea to build a water-filled trench filled with alligators along the border?
That would be a misuse of taxpayer dollars and extremely inhumane.
So you think it would be inhumane to build a moat, put alligators in them along the border? That would not be a good idea.
No.
What if we instead ordered soldiers to shoot migrants in the legs and stop them from coming to the U.S.? Would that be a good idea?
No, that would be attempted murder.
What about the wall that Trump, of course, was building? Would it be better instead if we electrified it and put spikes at the top of the wall?
That would dramatically increase the cost that Border Patrol would incur. We've already seen how Border Patrol's wall has caused so many more injuries. They have taken millions of dollars to care for the people who have suffered injuries falling from that wall.
And Mr. Beer, what if instead we launched military strikes against targets in northern Mexico? Would that make the border, you think, more or less secure?
It would make it less secure. Creating a crisis in Mexico would probably be the best thing you could do to increase illegal immigration.
I only ask you all these questions because these are all proposals by the Republican frontrunner for the nomination, Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump. Every single one of these ideas, alligator moats, missiles into Mexico, shooting migrants in the legs, putting spikes on top of the wall, these are all the ideas on how to make our border system and our immigration system more fair, according to Donald Trump. So obviously Donald Trump has no idea what he's talking about, and it's over and over we're seeing these horrific ideas. Now, Mr. Beard, do you think it's even possible to secure the border through force or deterrence alone, as some of my colleagues are suggesting?
No, absolutely not. We've had an experiment with this for the last 50 years. We've had very high levels of illegal immigration, punctuated by periods of job depression in the United States. Economic downturns do help secure the border. They talked about the most secure border in 45 years. April 2020 is not a good sample size. That's not a great way to secure the border, destroying the U.S. economy.
That's exactly right, Mr. Beard. And a lot of people want to come to the U.S. through legal pathways. I'm an immigrant myself. I came here as a young child, became a citizen in my early 20s. It's hard to become a U.S. citizen. But this is one of my favorite graphs here. This actually shows you our current immigration system, what the current legal pathway system looks like. Does this seem like an easy immigration system we have for someone to actually navigate through?
No, less than 3% of people who attempt that process get through it every year.
So this system, you would say, just looking at it, looks rather complex, is probably not easy to navigate for someone seeking a legal asylum or a process here. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Everybody, almost everyone needs an attorney in order to navigate this type of process.
And I will tell you that as someone that tried to navigate this system back here, being cheated on by numerous attorneys, cheated my family, stole money, woke up at 4 in the morning to get in lines that we were never seen at different offices. We haven't had comprehensive immigration reform in this country in 30+ years. It's been a failure of this Congress, and if the Republicans really wanted solutions, would it actually work on fixing this system here versus the attacks on immigrants and Donald Trump's insane ideas? With that, I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Burleson, for 5 minutes for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get to my questions, I have a short video that I'd like to play, if we could get that up.
We're executing a comprehensive strategy to secure our borders and build a safe, orderly, and humane immigration system.
The president has done more to secure the border and to deal with this issue of immigration than anybody else. He really has.
Our message has been straightforward and simple, and it's true. The border is closed.
Do you continue to maintain that the border is secure?
Yes, and we are working day in and day out to enhance its security. We are not saying don't come. We are saying don't come now.
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
We have taken unprecedented action over the past year and a half to secure our border and rebuild a safer and orderly process system.
I want to repeat my assurance to our audience this morning that the border is, in fact, secure.
You know, as we saw in the video, the Biden administration is repeatedly claiming that the southern border policies are safe, orderly, and humane. They repeatedly claim that the border is closed.